the most successful entrepreneurs aren't the ones following the playbook, but the ones brave enough to throw it out entirely. I'm Sarah, and this is Creatives Processing, where creatives reveal their process and process what it means to create. In this highlights episode, I'm bringing you 3 of my most powerful moments from my conversation with Lee Hedgmon, Portland's honey alchemist and founder of the Barreled Bee. First, the single moment that changed everything. A teaspoon of barrel-aged honey that led to a whole business. Then, how she's designed systems that work with her brain instead of against it. And finally, her approach to quality that goes way beyond what most people would ever consider. Here's what gets me about Lee. She's built a thriving business by being completely unapologetically herself. While others are doing market research, she follows curiosity. While others hide their ADHD, she's turned it into an advantage. While others cut corners, she's literally hiding test products in laundromats to see how they perform in the wild. Whether you're just starting out or years into building something, whether you felt like the weird one in business spaces, or you've wondered if your different process could actually be your strength, this one's for you. Let's start with the moment that changed everything.
I think my process is generally the same. It just depends. It's always starts with the question, I wonder what would happen if. And then I go, I wonder what would happen if I did, I dip this into this. I wonder what would happen if I had honey sticks that tasted like booze. I wonder what would happen. That was the question. So when I tell, and it's a part of the origin, it's the story I actually will tell people, is like when I first came up with the idea of doing my business, doing barrel aged honey, I was in the kitchen of a good friend of mine at the time, who had brought back honey from Hawaii. And she didn't say anything. She just goes, "Oh, have taste this honey." She poured me just a teaspoon of honey. And I was like, "Is that all you're going to give me?" She goes, "Yeah, that's it." And I was like, "Okay." So I put it in my mouth and I'm sitting there and I'm tasting this. And I'm just like, "Oh, this tastes just like," I said, "Well, this is buckwheat honey, which is so distinctive. It's one of my favorite honeys." So I knew it right away. And I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, "This tastes like rum." I was like, "This is like, oh." And she goes, "How did you know that?" She goes, "How'd you know?" I was like, "Well, buckwheat honey is my favorite honey. It's really distinctive." And I like rattled off because, I again, mead maker 20, by this time I'd been a mead maker for 20 years. And then it dawned in my head as I'm standing in this kitchen tasting this, I said, I wonder what would happen if I put different kinds of honey in barrels that were different. And that moment I was like, I'll see you later. I went home, um, thought of the name, went online to LegalZoom and set up and did everything then. I set everything up then. It was the very next day I did it. And then I go, now that I have all this, where am I going to get a barrel?
Yeah. Okay, great. I have the Barreled Bee. Now I need
I
the
had the
barrels.
idea and
Now
the
I need the
concept.
bees.
I had the tagline. I had everything, and I had no product. And I was like, all right, this is what we're going to do. I was like, when do we think we can launch this? How long? It's like no idea about how difficult that would be. But I also have noticed that since then, that's always been the guiding question of, I wonder what would happen if. Every one of my products has started out with, I wonder what would happen.
That moment, standing in a friend's kitchen, tasting that barrel-aged honey, and immediately knowing this is it, that's what happens when we're actually present and open to possibility. Lee wasn't analyzing spreadsheets. She was curious enough to recognize something meaningful in a single taste. When was the last time you had a moment like that, where you felt that instant core yes before you could even explain why? What I love is how Lee trusted that feeling enough to act on it immediately. She had the tagline, everything, and no product, and she was totally fine with that. Most of us, myself included, would want to validate the idea first, research the market, make sure we weren't being naive. But Lee understood something. Sometimes the vision has to come first. Her guiding question, I wonder what would happen if, is exactly the kind of thinking that leads to breakthrough work. This is why leading with genuine wonder creates solutions that feel inevitable rather than clever. You're not just solving today's problems, you're anticipating needs people don't even know they have yet. Next up, working with your brain instead of against it.
So most people take medication for their ADHD every single day. Like they're like, I take my one pill every day and I'm able. I learned that I can't do that. I learned this when I was working, actively working at the distillery, was that when I took my medication, everything took me longer because I couldn't, it took me longer to transition and pivot because I could not focus on 5 or 6 different things going on around me. I could only focus on one
Sure.
thing, which is
Yeah.
not helpful when you're working and you're running a still from one thing, you're possibly running 2 stills and trying to do fill orders, prep for something else. Like when we have 4 or 5 different things to get done, you can't focus all of your time on just one thing because to drown out everything else. So I realized that I only would take them on so I plan my days where I take my medication and I do them 3 days on, 2 days off. I plan my work week around that. So the 3 days that I'm on usually fall on days when I know I have meetings, I'm doing paperwork, or I'm going to be at a market.
Lee designed her entire business around how her brain actually works instead of trying to force herself into normal systems. What does normal even mean? That 3 days on, 2 days off medication schedule, that's not just managing ADHD, that's strategic business design. Are you fighting against your natural rhythms or have you found ways to leverage them? Lee is proof that our differences aren't obstacles. They might be our biggest advantages. Those butcher paper walls covering her living room are genius. It's like doodling on the walls without having to paint over it. She's created a physical dashboard that gives constant feedback and celebrates her progress. When she's feeling down, she can literally look up and around and see evidence of her wins. What really gets me is how she's integrated her personal and professional life without apology. There is no boundary between who she is and how she works, and that becomes her advantage. So consider this. What would change if you defined success based on what actually energizes you rather than what you think you should be measuring? The lesson isn't to copy Lee's exact systems, they work for her, but to give yourself permission to design your work around who you actually are. Your weird process might be exactly what makes your work irreplaceable.
I would hide cans in places that where the temperatures were different in the distillery, and I would completely forget ADHD. I was like a squirrel, I'd be putting stuff and I'd find things months later. But I would do that to get the humidity changes, temperature changes. We would put stuff in the freezers. I would put stuff in my hot car,
Yeah,
like the glove compartment. I think the worst thing I ever did was take stuff to the laundromat, wrap it up in clothes, and put it in a dryer.
sure. Is this unique to you doing testing in this way or is this like
I don't
standard?
know. I think this was things that I just thought of was the worst case. I did this to simulate like being in a really cold, somebody accidentally put something in the freezer. How would that change the taste? Road trips. If you're on a pallet, you're driving cross country. It's in the middle of summer and it gets to its destination, and then what happens? Like, how does that change the flavor? Can we and then if I can figure those things out, if there's a giant drift in flavor, it's like planning for the worst case scenario. Like, how do you tweak the recipe just a little bit so it doesn't change it, but it accounts for the drift, even if it's only accounts for the drift so that you can explain it to people that that's
Sure.
what it's supposed to do or that's what it's going to do. So a lot of that was for the educational purposes for everybody, for like the staff. Like if you get someone who says this and this and this is what happens, in general, this is and it's perfectly fine. When you're doing taste test studies of like, oh, I thought this was spicy. It was spicy for the week that I made it. And then a month later we taste and we're like, there's no spice character. And so we're like, well,
Huh.
let's go back to this recipe. And like Like, what did we do? Like, it's just been sitting, like, it's getting sunlight, so it's getting hit with UV rays. Like, if it's under fluorescence, what's going to happen? So, setting things out and about and then dating them and coming back. I tell people to do that all the time. And it's just so that you have it. It's like having a library catalog that you come back and do a sensory for. And that gives you an idea on a really low budget over time of what things are going to taste like, as opposed to paying thousands of dollars to have somebody run it through all these kinds of tests. People expect some drift in naturally made products. Um, Getting something that tastes exactly like the previous batch is really hard, but I do my best because I have parameters. Meticulous note taking and your mood. I don't do production if I am in a mood, bad mood. You never, and if you ask anybody, anybody's old grandmother or whoever, or auntie, and any like old family recipes, they will tell you never to cook in a bad mood because I get that'll that taints your food. It makes that mood goes into your food. So I don't do production. I have
Yeah.
canceled production on a day when I have not felt great in my mind, and I go, "Yeah, we're not doing that today," because
Yeah.
that really does hold true. I firmly believe that the energy that you carry into a kitchen and carry into your production, um, yeah, it feeds off of that. When they say this was made with love, they legit mean that. Like when if you can taste it. I have canceled. I've just not done a production on a day when I know I've not been in my best.
Yeah, because I think, like, if you power through it, like, you're gonna taste it and you're wasting materials, time, money,
Yeah,
all of that. So it might be, okay,
yeah.
today was a momentary loss, but we'll pick it up the next time. But I think, like,
And I
being in
did that
tune with
once,
yourself.
and I have not. I did it once, and I wasn't happy with it, and I said never again, and I'll never do it again. I would rather wait a week.
Sure.
I would rather wait a week than kind of be less than step great.
Oh my god. The laundromat testing story is everything. Most entrepreneurs would call Lee's methods inefficient, but she's not designing for perfect conditions. She's designing for real human experience in all its messy complexity. Think about your work. Are you designing for the ideal single use case or considering Tuesday morning when someone's rushing? Lee's thinking about every possible scenario because she genuinely cares about the end user and the quality of the end product. Her willingness to cancel production on bad mood days, most people might call that inefficient. Lee calls it non negotiable. She knows that the energy you bring to your work, especially if it's a food product, becomes part of what you create, like that kitchen witching, infusing love and feeling into the food that you're making. This connects to something bigger about building work that can't be commoditized. Lee's competitors can copy her recipes, but they can't copy the relationships she's built or the intention she brings into every batch. I wonder what aspects of your work would be impossible for competitors to replicate. Her testing philosophy isn't just quality control, it's caring enough to think through every single detail of someone's experience. That level of thoughtfulness is what creates real word of mouth because people can feel, and in this case, taste the difference. Lee's story shows us something powerful. The most meaningful creative work comes from integrating who you are with what you do. Her approach challenges us to think differently about success, creativity, and what it means to build something that matters. The entrepreneurs who succeed long term aren't following frameworks, they're brave enough to be completely themselves. You can find Lee and The Barreled Bee at thebarreledbee.com and on Instagram at thebarreledbee. If this episode sparks something sweet for you, subscribe and rate us, and also check out the full conversation episode with Lee for further insights. You can find me on Instagram at Creatives Processing or email me at creativesprocessing@wordofmouthcreative.co. I'm Sarah Mulligan Williams, Creative Director behind Word of Mouth. Till next time, stay human, stay curious. Thanks for listening.